What's going on YouTube? It's finally launch day. I play on PC, so I had a bit of early access last night, about 6 hours, and let me tell you guys, I did not want to stop playing. I was so pleasantly surprised with this game, I was actually kind of shocked. Let's get on into it and go over a few things. I'll start off by saying that you first start up the game and you're greeted with a cinematic that just absolutely blew me away. The choreography and the time they spent on the intro cinematic was nothing but awe-inspiring, and you truly can't appreciate it until you've actually seen it firsthand, because it literally gave me the vibe like I was watching Brad Pitt and Troy. Like, the fighting sequence was just amazing. Now they transition you into the tutorial in the usual fashion. They give you a pop-up window, and in this particular case they tell you about a red power attack and how it's unblockable and it will knock you down if they make contact. They continue this trend through the entirety of the tutorial, which, I mind you, is quite long. It can actually be daunting at first to imagine how long this actually is until you actually experience it. And once you're actually playing through the tutorial and you finish it, you'll truly understand just how long this tutorial actually is. But as you can see, the environments are very well done. All the textures are absolutely top-notch. They actually do quite an amazing job transitioning between environments from the light to the dark, with the contrast, the God rays, the particle effects. All that stuff is just extremely well done. Where I feel that they missed a little opportunity, which really isn't much of anything, particularly just a little note on my part, is the destructible parts of the environment, such as the urns and the globes and the vases. If you break those, you can actually get a little bit of the in-game currency, which is used later on to actually upgrade your gear, your armors, and weapons and so forth. Now, as far as the combat itself, I will note the combat overall feels very fluid and intuitive. Where I struggle a little bit, coming from my background and some of the over-the-shoulder type of games, is that the particular orientation that your striking distance is associated with, it's a little off kilter and a little jarring to get used to. So you'll actually see me whiff quite a few times during this gameplay. But after about a couple hours or so, you finally actually do get used to it, and it's a lot easier to aim. Especially once I started getting towards hour 6, it was a lot easier to aim. The skill grid is probably one of my favorite parts of the game thus far. It's so incredibly robust, and there's so many different avenues for builds and different build possibilities with all your different Valor plates. And what's even more interesting with the skill grid is that all of your different skills are designed in such a way where they might be defensive, but there's an offensive component to go along with that skill. The developers said that they were building this game around the concept of offense first, defense second, which I think translated very well over into the skill grid, and it definitely shows. And then, of course, you've got your typical inventory management, which is very straightforward. The user interface is very clean. I have no complaints with it whatsoever. Now on to probably what most would consider to be the absolute most important aspect of the game, the loot and progression system. I have no complaints or flaws that I see with it thus far. The loot is absolutely awesome. It's not what I would consider constantly raining loot down on you. There is a lot of trash loot along the way, but coming from my background where, I've played Anthem and the Division 2, the Division, all these other different looters, they definitely nailed the loot. Can't really say much else about it. They nailed the loot. At least as far as my experience thus far as a new player experience. Now, as far as end game experience, that leaves a little bit left to be said. But thus far, the loot and progression feels very good. And the progression is actually really cool because the user interface puts your level like right down at the very bottom, where it's easy to keep tabs on while you're in combat. And to help further progression, they take an opportunity here to introduce you to a system early on called Sunflare Orbs. These are like little mini areas where it's a horde mode, That's the best way to describe it. So the objective is that you have to kill as many enemies in as little time as possible, and the more enemies that you kill, the higher the tier your loot is going to be. And I think that's pretty cool because, you know, a lot of people like horde modes. They kind of take it as like a DPS check of sorts, or, you know, something that is a good unit of measure of how well they're doing. Now, lastly, I know one of the big questions out there for us PC users is how well optimized is this game? I could tell you I was actually really shocked last night. You know, a lot of games, they give you minimum specifications, and, you know, a lot of times they tend to run over those minimum specifications. I'm running a RTX 2080 Super, and my GPU usage was topping out around 75 or 80%, I do believe, under pretty heavy load in some of the combat sequences, and my thermals were well within normal means. And my CPU was running fantastic, way better than I had expected. There was no lag, no dropped frames. I was absolutely blown away at how well optimized this game actually was. And so we're going to wrap this video up here, guys, with the Solaris battle, which is the final boss in the tutorial. Yet another well done achievement on behalf of the development team, in my opinion. Does a real good job of introducing some basic boss mechanics. Now, I will be covering Godfall exclusively on my channel, so if you hit like and subscribe on this video, you'll be notified when I make future uploads. Catch you all out there on the battlefield.